sure we could talk about this for hours, but I mean, if we just do a quick roundup, kind of like how private is private? I mean, you look at like some of these privacy policies that are out there for, your information is private, but we're going to, and Yuri and I covered this on a previous episode. It wasn't for a private chain. It was for something else. But it was, our privacy policy is we will, grab your email. We will know your location. We will have your IP address. We'll know which country you're in. And you're like, oh, wow, well, this is just like so far from private. I mean, a few swear words start coming to mind. But then you start to look at the privacy coins and you're thinking, how private is private? Where's the boundaries between, if I send a transaction to Yuri with any one of these chains, are there any of them where, for example, they'd know my IP address, or they'd know where I'm physically sitting, or they'd have some access to an email address? Or, I mean, I think you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally think that there is a over-exaggeration of the marketing side of privacy.
Okay.
Verge did it best, at least most recently, that people might, recall.
Yeah.
But Verge's privacy is not a cryptographic privacy like Zcash or Monero is, right? Verge's privacy is I2P privacy, and it's shielding, it's IP address shielding. It's, at the end of the day, its blockchain still has lots of data to be analyzed, right? Now, you and I, and the power of all three of us, even together spending months, couldn't decrypt this stuff, right?
Right.
Let's not pretend for a half a second that there aren't some three-lettered agencies out there that don't have the computing power, desire, and will someday to break this stuff in a heartbeat, right?
Yep.
So when you look at something like, let's just say Zcash, since we're based off it, I'm always glad to look at our weaknesses, right? If you look at something like Zcash, when people have the option to go from public to private, those funds are seen. And as soon as someone watches a certain amount of funds wash into a private pool, they can now wait for that amount of funds to wash right back out of that private pool. Now, it doesn't matter if you're buying ham or, cars or porn with it. It's your right to do whatever you want with that money, right? And to be able to have it tracked in such an easy way on a privacy coin is not very morally proper, I guess. I don't think that it's okay for people to treat privacy like a sales tool. I think it should be treated more like medicine. I think it should be looked at much more seriously, right? I think that privacy is important for lots of people. For example, and you, Steve, will understand this, that people have had their lives and narrative changed over ideas or assumptions that other people have made, and the lack of privacy that those people have allowed other people to create narratives that this is who this person is, or this is who that person is, and I think that not having privacy by default is just asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm. I think we all probably agree that there's some level of privacy we'd all like to reclaim, given the amount of data that we don't even want to disclose that somehow ends up with our emails being flooded with stuff, with hacking problems or data breaches that happen with DNA companies or with credit agencies, or dare I say with social media companies. I mean, it's a recurring theme of privacy is one half of the problem and security of the data itself is the other. But if you don't honor the privacy and the security, then the whole thing is in the wash anyway.
No, it's totally true. You asked me some reasons about why privacy, and there's a million reasons why. None of them need to be nefarious, Mm-hmm. You could be applying to a school for your children, and let's say in a world where everyone transacts on blockchain, the school could say, well, this other applicant looks like they have some more money, and it looks like they give more money to charitable causes, so we're going to choose this person's child over that person's child. Or let's say you're buying stuff on Bitcoin and you go to the store and you buy a bunch of booze and smokes, and then your insurance company finds out that you're now a smoker and a drinker, and they're going to raise your rates, right? Or let's say your boss finds out that you're buying diapers now and baby kits and cribs, and he's afraid that you're not going to take your job so seriously anymore, right? And he might question what your intentions are for the company. There's many reasons you need privacy. and none of them are needing to be nefarious.
So it's interesting. These are interesting examples because I have a slightly different example, which might also be very relevant because I know you have kids and I've got kids. I mean, my kids are at school. The school will take photographs. They want to put the photographs to share with the parents. And schools being about as ignorant as it gets when it comes to IT, technology, safety, privacy, and the rest, say, oh, yeah, we put them all on Facebook. And you're like, oh, my God, seriously? My kids are up on Facebook? Now, that's the last thing I want because I'm sitting here on YouTube and I'm a reasonably public person. And I don't want my kids out on public on Facebook because I don't want them to have any, I don't want anything to happen to them or us. And unfortunately, there are bad actors as much as there are good actors out there. So
you're perfectly right. Privacy, to me, more importantly, not only has to be not about being nefarious, but it actually protects us from nefarious people.
That's exactly where I'm heading with it. I want to be able to protect things that I want to protect.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's all about personal security and operational security as well. And some kook in the world doesn't need to have a beef with you over something we said today and then come, start bugging your kids, right? Like,
well, exactly.
And it happens, man.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that we talk about privacy coins in terms of transmission of funds. I'd like to see us move to a place where privacy would actually allow us to take control of the, let's say, image content of our own family and friends so that it's not just, oh, the photo is up on Facebook, but, school example would be school says photo is up, but now I have control of that photo to determine whether or not that photo can be seen publicly. And of course, if it's a photo with a group of kids, then you'd need consensus that all parents agree. And if one parent says no, well, guess what? The photo is not going up in the public. It may be available privately, but that creates a very, very interesting kind of future dimension for me as a parent trying to protect my children.
Well, look, 20 years from now, I don't see there not being an automatic blockchain that's written between parents who opt in to be able to provide consensus for pictures to be allowed to be shared online, and other parents can verify that all the other parents have opted in as well. Look, man, I think it's a fantastic idea. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but 10, 20 years from now, it could be just normal, right? I think it's fantastic.
Let's start building it, my friend, because
get down, man. We totally have talked about
it. Be the game changer for every parent out there that's worried about the safety of their children.
Look, so what you're saying is a fantastic idea. It's something we haven't even thought about in the sense that we've talked about an IPSF type file sharing setup or system where you can share your Instagram photos or whoever with people.
You're talking about the interplanetary file system, right? The IPFS, right?
Right. It doesn't have to be a, we're pirating movies back and forth, right? It doesn't have to be we're stealing music and sharing it, which is the normal association with the IPSF, right?
I know.
It could be used for something as simple as a group chat, a private photo of your family that you want to share with only family members who have that key, right? So totally a fantastic idea, something that we could certainly look at, finding a way to work in.
Cool. I mean, for me, I want to move beyond the idea of just data into, okay, yes, I know that data is not just data, but it's also files. But for me, it's music, it's written documents, it's images, it's anything digital that's been created or anything that's been digitized that I want to be able to control. I don't want it just to be ending up in the wrong person's hands because, it's to protect against, for me, the privacy is to protect against the bad actors. That's kind of the reason why I like these things. It's not to hide stuff and to be nefarious. I mean, yes, there will always be those people too, but I first and foremost, as a parent, think of my children.
True.
And
look, when you're talking about just data and sharing and this and that, I am the most guilty of not giving our users credit for the work that they do. So I get memes and I get images and I get this stuff all the time, and I'll post it to Twitter and I'll jam it out, and 5 minutes later I'm tagging the guy who made it. I'm sorry, I forgot to tag it. If there's some way to credit them automatically through this, that would be fantastic, right?
True.
So,
well, digital ownership's another thing, right? Because with privacy, you should be able to have anonymous digital ownership that no one else can then take that digital content and use it unless the person says, I'm still going to be anonymous, but yes, you can use it, and yes, there's digital rights attached, and yes, these are the fees for it. And then it would be digitally subscribable or shared or whatever. I mean, going beyond a privacy coin for me, and this is interesting that we've gotten into this discussion because this was certainly not something we talked about pre-show or ever. But
right.
I mean, I'm going off on tangents here, but I'm actually getting excited about this now because I'm beginning to realize how many possible practical applications there could be. Corporate espionage problems. I worked, as it's publicly known on my LinkedIn profile, I worked for Infosys for 3 years. I worked for Deloitte for a number of years. But when I was at Infosys, which was not that long ago, obsession with corporate espionage. I mean, you couldn't move a file, off your laptop. It was like but they had a reason for it, because they did not want their competition to know what was going on. They wanted to make sure that their own environment was safe and secure. And I could see privacy as a blockchain solution adding so much value to these companies to enable them to secure and protect their corporate infrastructures in a level that's never been conceived of before.
Even just emails. I mean, look, my buddy works for a Fortune 500 company, and right now the biggest thing they've been doing is they've been internally test phishing all of their CEOs and employees. They've been sending test phish emails, trying to figure out who's clicking on bad actor emails, right? And to be able to just show some sort of blockchain hash key lock where they can verify against it and just say, yes, this email definitely came from this person or not. They're just trying to make sure that their employees aren't fucking up, right? Because it's so prevalent, even without intention, right?
Yeah. The company I work for, they do that all the time.
Do they?
Really?
Yeah. It's really obvious to find out which ones are not. But yeah, because a lot of employees don't pay attention. They just go, oh, I didn't know this, and they click on it. And so yeah, there's we actually now have a separate report phishing button on our email that's like, if there's anything that you're curious about. I've actually reported emails that weren't phishing but seemed weird from internally, and they're like, sorry, you're right, this looks weird, but it's a real email. So thank you. So now I'm just like, whatever, I'll just report everything.
Wow. I mean, if you're taking this to the next level of okay, now I'm going to take this another level for you because this is even getting weirder, but let's go conspiracy theory now. But I mean, take for example, dare I say, our U.S. current leadership, who is all about fake news. And of course, maybe there's an argument that says that when it comes to content, there's some level of is the content, who wrote the content? Where does it come from? Is it real? And do we have a right to actually challenge whether it's real or not through consensus to determine whether or not the content should be even public or not? I mean, it goes into all sorts of weird levels. I mean, not saying that's the right direction, but it might be for a futuristic view of what does privacy look like, or what should be public as opposed to what's private. But I'm reversing it around and I'm saying, let's look at it from the public perspective. Should this even be public in the first place? Maybe not. Maybe we should actually determine that it should be private or limited to a subset of people. But then again, we don't want to be, the other half of my brain is saying, hang on, that's a bad idea because now we're doing censorship.
Yeah, I was like, okay, we're not trying to go communist or socialist here. But
no, not at all. But it's all about where the boundaries are in privacy, right? Privacy versus public domain content, and how do we protect people or protect? It's not about protecting others. It's more about me protecting myself for what I've done or what I want to control, not about me trying to prevent you from seeing it.
Right. Let's focus on that. So something you asked me about before, we'll cut back to the show, right? We'll get back to what we actually came to talk about, right? Because that's a whole different topic.
Oh, I know, but this is interesting.
So privacy, take it back. What was that?
That's why you're here.
I love it. I love the conversation. I love how it just flows, and I love the fact that you guys are thinking abstract and in ways that not everyone does, and it's good for people to just think about these things. And if you're just talking about it for a moment, puts it in their mind for a day, it's a fantastic time for us to be spending. So
yeah.
On the privacy stuff for people, for personal, for back to blockchain, for pirate, for Z transactions, Z meaning private transactions. Our chain is the only chain that starts private from the minute you mine. So when you mine to a mining pool, all the payouts are private addresses. When you go to an exchange, the input isn't a private address. The output is a private address only. Right now, we just this week launched e-commerce tools for Shopify and WordPress. So if you have a web shop on either of those sites, you can use they have a plugin for WordPress or a script for Shopify. And you can basically go from mining to delivering goods to your doorstep privately at this point. Yeah.
So how did you get that integrated with Shopify? Was that difficult to do?
On Shopify, they don't have the third-party allotment for using crypto payments. They have I think it's coin payments that they use, I believe.
Oh,
and
the company.
Yeah, so we just made a script that adds a payment option to the checkout page. When they go to checkout, just add our payment, and then when you go to that, it will pull up a